Rachel stood in front of the door of the apartment she had shared with Mark just a week ago. The place where they once made dinner together, laughed over takeout, and binge-watched old sitcoms. Now, the keys in her hand refused to turn. The lock had been changed. That alone told her everything. He didn't expect her to come back. Or maybe, deep down, he hoped she wouldn't. But Rachel had returned. Just 7 days earlier, their relationship had imploded over something that felt small at first. A name on a text notification. Mark's phone had lit up during dinner. Rachel hadn't meant to snoop, but something about the way he grabbed it too quickly sparked a silent alarm. Later, when he went to shower, curiosity won. She picked up the phone and opened the chat with someone named Ashley, whose name was surrounded by little heart emojis. Can't wait to see you again. Sunshine. Read the most recent message. Rachel's stomach turned. Sunshine? When Mark walked back into the living room with a towel around his waist, she was holding the phone. Expression unreadable. So she's your sunshine? And I'm what? The one who packs your lunch? Mark laughed awkwardly. Babe, it's nothing. Just a dumb message. She's just a friend. You're my bunny. You know that. A bunny? She snapped. Then go cuddle your sunshine and hop off somewhere else. He kept trying to defuse it with jokes, his usual tactic. But this time it didn't work. She slapped him hard across the face and walked out that night. Packed a small bag and left for her parents' place in the suburbs, hoping some distance would help her breathe. Now she was back. Not to reconcile, but to end things properly. She thought she'd talk, maybe pack her things. But the lock said everything. She knocked once, twice, no answer. But Rachel had seen the light in the bedroom window as she approached the building. Someone was home. She knocked harder. A few moments passed before the door opened. Mark stood there, shirtless, wearing her bathrobe, smelling like her expensive cologne, the one he only used on special occasions. His face was freshly shaven, and he leaned casually against the doorframe with a smug smirk. Rachel, hey? I guess you came to pick up your things? Now's not really a good time. I'm not alone. Her lips curled in a cold smile. That was fast. 1 week and already moved on? Is this the girl who used to ask you for bus fare at the train station? Mark chuckled and shrugged. And then she appeared. Ashley. Younger. Blonde. Early 20s. Wearing Rachel's robe. Rachel's slippers. The sight was surreal. Rachel didn't flinch. Hello, Ashley, she said smoothly, looking her up and down. How's the robe? Not too tight? Mark propose yet? Or is this still a trial period? Ashley said nothing, but the flicker of surprise gave her away. She hadn't expected this version of Rachel. Calm, composed, slicing through the room like glass. Mark waited for the meltdown, screaming, crying, maybe even a scene for the neighbors. But it never came. Instead, Rachel nodded firmly. Yes, Mark, I came for my things, and you both are going to help me. Rachel stepped into the apartment like she owned it because legally she did, or at least half of it. Bought during their marriage, fully co-financed. Mark knew it, and judging by the sudden nervous twitch in his jaw, he also knew she wasn't bluffing. Ashley lingered by the kitchen doorway, clutching her phone, eyes darting between them. Rachel, wait, Mark said quickly, forcing a smile. I thought you were just going to stop by, not, this. You said I came for my things, right? Rachel turned to him calmly. So I'm taking them. She pulled out her phone and began scrolling through her contacts. Then, without hesitation, she tapped and called a number. Hi, yes, I need a moving service. Today. As soon as possible. Address is 3472 West Monroe, apartment 5B. I need everything packed and taken out. Furniture, appliances, all of it. Yep, everything. Mark's eyes widened. Wait, what do you mean everything? I mean everything that belongs to us. Since it was bought while we were married, I have a legal right to half. But lucky you, today I feel generous, so I'll just take all the furniture. You can keep, let's say, the stool and the mattress. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Just then, the first moving truck pulled up outside. Rachel turned to Ashley with a raised eyebrow. You want to keep the fridge? I can give you a deal. Barely used, runs quietly, fits wine bottles and betrayal just fine. Ashley blinked. She opened her mouth to say something, but only shook her head. Mark moved toward Rachel, arms slightly out as if to plead. Rachel, come on. This is crazy. You're really going to take everything? You left me with half a broken heart and zero explanation. Taking a couch and a few chairs seems like a bargain. The movers came in fast, efficient, and polite. They started unhooking the TV from the wall, wrapping the dining chairs, rolling up rugs. Rachel walked around like a floor manager, pointing and guiding. Mark just stood there, motionless, watching his world dismantle piece by piece. At least leave the coffee maker? He mumbled. Nope, that was my birthday gift. From me to me. Ashley, now pacing, hissed something into Mark's ear. He didn't reply. He just stood there like someone whose entire house had caught fire, and all he had was a bucket of excuses. Within 40 minutes, most of the apartment was cleared out. The living room echoed. The kitchen counters were bare. His clothes still in a messy pile on the floor. Rachel had made no move to touch them. Finally, she picked up her purse, pulled out her passport, and turned to Mark. Well, thanks for everything, Mark. I'm staying with a friend tonight. Tomorrow morning I'll head to the courthouse to file for divorce. You're serious? Dead serious. Then, she looked at Ashley and added with a half-smile. He's all yours, sweetheart. He's sweet, just spineless. Good luck. She turned on her heel and walked out, slamming the door behind her with a clean, deliberate thud. Ashley turned to Mark with fire in her eyes. That was your romantic night? I didn't know she'd save it. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. You know what they say? Love can make a palace out of a shack. But you can't even manage a mattress and a lamp. She slapped him across the face and left. Mark stood alone in the half-empty apartment. All he had left was a single stool, an old mattress, and the realization that his one stupid mistake had just cost him everything. A week had passed. Mark sat at the same kitchen table he once shared with Rachel. Now scratched, bare and strangely cold. The place felt more like a storage unit than a home. The only furniture left was the stool he barely fit on, and an old mattress that sagged in the middle. No coffee maker, no couch, no music, no Rachel, just a court summons. Civil hearing scheduled. Divorce and Property Division, Rachel M. versus Mark T. The email hit like a slap. As if she hadn't already walked out with everything. Now she was coming for the rest. He hadn't heard from Ashley since the night she stormed out. Not a call, not a text. Apparently, she wasn't into candlelit dinners on the floor. Go figure. Now, dressed in a wrinkled shirt and worn-out jeans, Mark waited outside the Cook County Courthouse, pacing. Rachel arrived 5 minutes before the hearing. She looked sharp, confident. Hair in a sleek ponytail. A folder tucked under her arm. Not a trace of hesitation. Hey, he said softly. Morning, she replied. Polite but distant. They sat together in the hallway, like two strangers waiting for the same bus. After a long silence, Mark cleared his throat. I didn't think it would go this far. Rachel glanced at him, calm and composed. You mean you didn't think I'd actually follow through? He didn't respond. You made your choice, Mark. I'm just making mine. He wanted to argue, wanted to ask for a second chance. But the look in her eyes shut down every excuse before it could leave his mouth. Inside the courtroom, things moved quickly. The paperwork was clear. The assets had been mostly divided, or rather, removed. The judge simply nodded and stamped the decision. Divorced. Done. As they walked out of the courthouse, Mark felt the finality settle into his bones. So, you and Ashley? Rachel asked casually, without a hint of jealousy. She left. Said I was spineless. Said you were right. Rachel let out a quiet chuckle. Well, at least someone's learning. Rachel, do you think maybe, I don't know, we could ever... She stopped walking. No, Mark. But, I'm not the woman who cries over a cheater. I used to be. But she's gone now. And so are you. He stood there, deflated, mouth half open. She stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. Delete my number. When you sell the apartment, send my cut to the email listed in the divorce file. I don't want calls. I don't want texts. Just closure. Then she turned and walked away. No tears. No drama. Just the sound of her heels on the concrete. Mark stayed behind, holding a manila envelope full of legal documents and staring at the space she left behind, which, suddenly, felt just as hollow as his apartment. She didn't yell. She didn't break. And that's how he knew. He had lost her for good. 6 months later, Rachel stood on the balcony of her new apartment on the 12th floor, overlooking a quiet Chicago street lit by the warm gold of spring sunlight. The air smelled of lilacs and fresh starts. Inside, the space was small but hers. A cozy one-bedroom filled with plants, books, and light. A coffee machine hummed on the counter. A laptop blinked with open tabs for custom cake orders, color palettes, and a digital calendar filled with online workshops. She had left her old job 2 months after the divorce was finalized. Took a leap. Started her own small business, baking, decorating, teaching. Things she used to squeeze in between someone else's needs. Now they were her whole world, and she was thriving. Rachel had students from all over the country, a growing client base, and the kind of inner peace that no one else could hand her, because she built it herself. She sipped her coffee and glanced at her phone. A new message. Unknown number. I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk. She didn't finish reading. She pressed delete. No anger. No pain. Just nothing. That was the difference. She used to ache for closure. Now silence was enough. On the weekends, she took long walks with her neighbor's golden retriever. On Thursdays, she hosted a women's circle for small business owners. Her parents visited often and stopped asking when she'd settle down. They saw it in her face now. She already had. One evening, while closing her laptop, she paused in front of the mirror. Gone was the woman who waited for apologies. Gone was the woman who forgave out of fear. In her place stood someone new. Someone who didn't chase love, but invited it if it ever came. She smiled at her reflection and whispered, I'm not someone's bunny anymore. She was Rachel. Whole, free, unapologetically her. And she would never again shrink herself to fit someone else's comfort. If you like the story, give it a like, subscribe and share in the comments.